Well, let's speak to Scott Lucas. He's a professor of international politics at Birmingham University here in the UK. Professor, thank you for your time. What do you make of this decision by the UAE?
It was expected. I think what's interesting are the motives behind it. I think in part it's economic. The Assad regime is estimated to need about $400 billion in reconstruction projects for its parts of Syria. The UAE would like to get a share of those projects. This gives it the opportunity to do so. But I think there are also the political motives, and that is that the UAE wants to try to curb Iranian influence, with Iran being the essential backer of the Assad regime since 2011. But I think the UAE is also moving in because it wants to counterbalance Turkey. Because, of course, Syria is not one country now. It, in fact, is three. The Assad regime's area, the Turkish opposition area in the northwest, and the Kurdish area in the northeast. And with Turkey likely to take more of that Kurdish area, the UAE, which is battling Turkey, and the UAE and Saudi Arabia, which are battling Turkey for regional influence in the Middle East, I think they are moving closer towards the Assad regime to try to offset Ankara.
I was exactly about to ask you that point about Saudi Arabia because of Riyadh's relationship with the United Arab Emirates. Do you think there's a Saudi hand in here indirectly influencing what the United Arab Emirates is doing, or indeed possibly even directly? Because, as you say, there's a geopolitical power play game taking place. Now the politics and the economics are going hand in hand because everybody is looking towards what will happen eventually when the war ends. All wars do end, and this one at some stage presumably will as well.
Well, I think the UAE doesn't need a Saudi hand, first of all. I think Mohammed bin Zayed, although he is not as prominent in the headlines, is arguably shrewder and more assertive than his Saudi counterpart, Mohammed bin Salman. That said, I think Saudi Arabia is likely to follow the UAE in trying to open up relations with the Assad regime, both bilaterally and then through the Arab League. And I would probably say that is not because the war is ending, but because the war is changing shape, because the conflict will go on. Turkey will consolidate alongside opposition and rebel forces its area in northern Syria. The Assad regime will hope to hold on, being propped up by external support, ironically now, from countries that used to support the Syrian opposition. In other words, this is one more step recognizing a partitioned Syria, a broken up country, and everyone is scrambling to maintain their influence by grabbing a piece of whatever is left of that country.
You mentioned Turkey's and the territory that it's fighting for against the YPG in the northeast of the country. Do you think it's likely to comply with the Russian request to hand over that YPG-controlled territory to the Assad regime?
I think no. I think it will absolutely not comply with the request for the YPG to hand over territory to the Assad regime, because Ankara also sees the Assad regime as being an unstable challenge in the region. I think what's more likely is that Ankara will negotiate with Moscow to try to get the Kurdish factions, the PYD political party and the YPG militia, to move out of Manbij. That's on the western edge of the current Kurdish territory, where your correspondent was noting that military reinforcements are being sent. And if that move out of Manbij takes place, I think Turkey will be satisfied for now not to launch an offensive against the Kurdish areas, but to gradually expand its zone of influence. But if the Kurds do not leave Manbij, I think this raises the prospect of a new cycle of conflict in the Syrian civil war, and I don't know where that's likely to wind up.
Scott Lucas, you know, we always appreciate your time with us on TRT World. Thanks a lot.